How are we going to work out the tyre pressure before we go away? Anyone got a real good application on how to work out your tyre pressure? Anybody? No hands are jumping up. Okay. Tyre gauge. Yeah, but what are we meant to be reading on the tyre gauge? 45, 65, 92, 106, PSI, 50. There is a mathematical calc. There is. I actually downloaded a calc that's sitting out in the car today, didn't bring the sheets in. There's a few rule of thumbs. None of them are perfect. There is information on the tyre as well. Problem is you've got to put that tyre on the scales to know what it weighs to refer to what's printed on the tyre for tyre pressure.
The equation is...
Go on.
The weight on the tyre. So we'd have to weigh it, like Jeff says. We've got to weigh that tyre and say there's...
X kgs.
Say there's 1,500 kilos on it. On the tyre rating, there is the maximum allowable load on that tyre, and there's also the maximum allowable PSI or kPa. So it's the actual load, the physical load that we weigh on it, divided by the maximum allowable load, multiplied by the maximum allowable tyre pressure. It'll work out to, let's say,
a PSI.
Yeah, so it'll work out to a PSI. But Jeff's now expand on that a little bit.
So we've been using a couple, and I think you've reverted to it over the years, haven't you? 4 PSI rule. So whatever you started with as a cold pressure before you've hit the road, when the tyre's warmed up to its maximum running pressure, we don't want it to see it increase any more than 4 PSI.
If you're using air.
Yeah, that's it.
And I point that out. Does that run nitrogen?
Nitrogen won't expand. If you're running nitrogen, it won't expand.
PSI rule only works if you're running just straight air in your tyres, not nitrogen in your tyres.
Yeah. Okay. So if it doesn't exceed 4, you're pretty close to where you should be for the weight that's sitting on that tyre today and the type of driving you're doing today. Obviously every day might change.
Can you explain how you get the 4?
How I get the 4? Yeah, from cold to running temperature. So that could be an hour and a half, 2 hours your first stop. Do a check. Because is the pressure in this tyre going to be the same as the pressure in that tyre? No. Okay. How much pressure are you going to keep in your spare while you're travelling? Who carries a pump with them? Because if you had to get the spare off the back and it was flat, what are you going to do? So I usually pump my spare up higher than what I'll be running these on the road, because there's a little bit of allowance for it to reduce a bit over time while it sits there. Because you can always let pressure out before you put it back on, instead of adding to it, especially if you haven't got a tyre gauge. Yeah. Wear and tear, treads, cracking. Well, the other one I was put onto many years ago is if I had a crew cut and after about a few days I ran my hand over there, what would you feel? Just little spikes sticking up. If you did that to your tyre, so it felt furry, then the tyre pressures you're running are too low for the weight that's on your tyre. They're all guides though, they're all indicators. Nothing's perfect.